Hello and welcome to Science for Bedtime. I'm glad you're here in a moment where nothing needs to be rushed and nothing needs to be fully understood. Tonight, science doesn't need to explain itself clearly or all at once. It can move slowly, offering ideas the way the natural world does, gently and without urgency. You don't need to keep track of every detail. You can simply listen, allowing the story of life to unfold quietly in the background. Evolution is often described as a process of change, but just as importantly, it is a process of patience. Most of what evolution does happens far too slowly to notice. It works through small differences, repeated over long stretches of time, allowing living things to adjust to their surroundings without any sense of direction or goal. Nothing is aiming for perfection. Life simply continues, adapting as it goes. At its core, evolution rests on a simple truth. Living things are not identical to one another. Even within the same species, individuals vary in countless subtle ways. These differences might affect how well an organism finds food, avoids danger, or survives changing conditions. Over time, some variations become more common, not because they are better in an absolute sense, but because they happen to work slightly more reliably in a particular place and moment. This process does not hurry. A trait that spreads through a population often does so gradually, over many generations. In some cases, it takes thousands or millions of years for a small change to become noticeable. In others, the change remains almost invisible, woven quietly into the background of life. Evolution is not dramatic by default. Most of the time, it is subtle. Long before complex plants or animals existed, life on Earth was simple. Single-celled organisms lived in oceans that looked nothing like they do today. There was not yet an oxygen-rich atmosphere, no land to walk on, and the chemistry of early life was closely entangled with the surrounding environment. These early organisms survived by responding to their surroundings, using whatever energy sources were available. Even then, variation existed, and even then, time allowed those variations to matter. As life continued, some organisms began to cooperate in new ways. Cells formed partnerships, eventually becoming more complex structures. This did not happen because complexity was planned, but because certain arrangements happened to persist. Over immense spans of time, these small successes accumulated, giving rise to cells with internal compartments, and later, to multicellular life. Once organisms were made of many cells, new possibilities emerged. Different cells could take on different roles, some specialized in movement, others in digestion, others in protection or sensing the environment. This division of labor allowed bodies to grow larger and more intricate, not all at once, but step by step, as long as each step remained workable. One of the calming truths about evolution is that it rarely discards what already exists. Instead, it modifies and repurposes. Structures that once served one function often find new roles as conditions change. A feature does not need to disappear entirely to stop being central. It can fade into the background, become smaller, or take on a quieter purpose. Because of this, the history of life is layered rather than erased. Many organisms carry traces of their past within their bodies. These traces are not mistakes. They are records of what once worked well enough to persist. Evolution tends to build forward using what is already present rather than starting over. Over time, life spread into new environments. Some organisms adapted to life on land, others to deep water, others to extreme heat or cold. Each environment placed gentle pressure on survival, favoring traits that happened to align with local conditions. No single solution worked everywhere, which is why life diversified instead of converging into one form. This diversification was not evenly paced. Long periods of relative stability were sometimes followed by shorter periods of rapid change, often when environments shifted or new opportunities appeared. Even then, change was constrained by what organisms already were. Evolution works with history, not against it. Despite its complexity, evolution does not require awareness. No organism needs to know it is evolving. Changes spread because of reproduction, inheritance, and survival, not intention. The process continues whether it is observed, studied, or completely ignored. From this perspective, evolution becomes less of a story with a beginning and an end, and more of a continuous movement. Life responds to conditions, conditions change, and life responds again. The rhythm is steady, repeating, and open-ended. Even now, this process continues quietly. Bacteria adapt to new environments. Plants shift their ranges. Animals adjust behaviors in subtle ways. Most of these changes are too small to notice in a single lifetime, but they accumulate all the same. Nothing here demands attention. These ideas do not need to be held tightly. They can remain soft, unfolding at their own pace, much like the process they describe. Life has always been patient. Evolution has never rushed. It simply continues, shaping the living world gently, one small variation at a time. As life diversified, it did not do so evenly or symmetrically. Some branches explored countless variations, while others remained relatively unchanged for immense periods of time. This unevenness is not a flaw in the process. It is one of its defining characteristics. Evolution does not change lineages evenly. It responds locally, shaping organisms according to very specific circumstances, and then leaving them largely alone once those circumstances remain stable. This is why some forms of life appear ancient, almost unchanged, while others seem endlessly adaptable. When an organism fits its environment well enough, there is little pressure to alter it. Stability, in this sense, becomes its own form of success. Change is not constant for every lineage. It arrives only when conditions make it necessary. Many of the most familiar features of living things began as small adjustments rather than bold innovations. Limbs, for example, did not appear suddenly as legs or arms. They emerged gradually from earlier structures that served different purposes. What would eventually become hands and feet began as flexible fins, useful for navigating shallow water. Over long periods of time, as some animals spent more time near land, these fins became sturdier, more jointed, and better suited for bearing weight. This transformation did not follow a straight line. Some lineages explored partial adaptations and remained aquatic. Others moved back and forth between water and land. Evolution does not commit immediately. It experiments gently, allowing multiple possibilities to exist at once. Only later, through repetition and survival, do certain paths become more prominent. The same gradual reshaping can be seen in how senses evolved. Vision, hearing, smell, and touch all began in simple forms. Early organisms could detect light and darkness without forming images. They could sense chemical gradients without distinguishing specific scents. Over time, these basic sensitivities were refined. Eyes gained lenses, ears became tuned to vibrations in air or water, noses learned to recognize complex mixtures of molecules. Even so, no sense evolved in isolation. Each one developed in relation to the environment and the organism's way of life. Animals that moved through darkness refined non-visual senses. Those that relied on distance developed sharper sight. Evolution did not aim to create a complete sensory package. It shaped what was useful enough to persist. One of the quieter truths about evolution is that loss is just as important as gain. When a structure or ability no longer provides an advantage, it often fades rather than disappearing abruptly. Eyes diminish in animals that live permanently in darkness. Wings shrink in birds that no longer need to fly. Teeth change shape as diets shift. These losses are not signs of regression. They are adjustments that conserve energy and simplify what no longer serves a purpose. This gradual letting go leaves behind traces. Vestigial structures remain embedded in bodies long after their original use has faded. They are not mistakes. They are evidence of continuity. Evolution rarely deletes completely. It modifies, quiets, and repurposes. Because of this, living organisms often carry more history than function. A structure may persist simply because removing it would require more change than leaving it in place. As long as it does not interfere with survival, it can remain a subtle reminder of earlier conditions. This layering of old and new creates bodies that are not perfectly optimized but workable. Evolution does not refine endlessly toward efficiency. It favors what is sufficient. If an organism can survive, reproduce, and persist, there is little pressure to make it flawless. Across generations, this approach creates resilience. Life does not depend on single solutions. It relies on overlapping systems, backup pathways, and flexibility. If one trait becomes less useful, another may compensate. If conditions shift slowly, organisms often adjust without dramatic change. Time plays a central role in this quiet process. Evolution unfolds on scales far longer than individual lives. A single generation experiences only a small slice of the process. Changes that shape entire species occur across thousands or millions of births. From within that span, the process feels almost still. This slowness allows complexity to build without fragility. Each small change is tested repeatedly across many lives before it becomes widespread. Sudden changes that destabilize survival tend not to persist. What remains is what fits gently into the existing system. Because of this, evolution often appears conservative rather than adventurous. It modifies familiar structures instead of inventing new ones. Wings evolve from arms, teeth evolve from modified scales. Inner ear bones originate from jaw elements. Novelty emerges through rearrangement rather than creation from nothing. This pattern can be seen clearly in embryos. During early development, many animals briefly resemble distant relatives. These similarities do not reflect future form, but shared ancestry. Development follows ancient pathways before branching into specialized outcomes. Evolution builds new forms by adjusting timing and emphasis, not by rewriting the entire process. Small shifts in when a gene activates or how long a structure grows can lead to significant differences in adult form. These timing changes, known as developmental tweaks, are among the most powerful tools evolution uses. They allow large effects to arise from subtle genetic changes. Over long periods, these accumulated adjustments give rise to the immense diversity of life seen today. Yet beneath that diversity lies a shared foundation. The same basic genetic code operates across all known life on Earth. Cells copy information, build proteins, and maintain boundaries using mechanisms inherited from ancient ancestors. This shared foundation means that life is not a collection of unrelated experiments. It is a single, branching process. Every species alive today is connected through an unbroken chain of reproduction, reaching back to the earliest living systems. Evolution does not move forward alone. It carries everything with it. This connection does not imply similarity in appearance or behavior. A bacterium and a whale differ enormously, but at a deeper level, they rely on the same molecular language. The differences lie in how that language is expressed, not in the alphabet itself. Because evolution works through inheritance, it preserves continuity even as it allows change. Each generation receives a version of what came before, modified slightly by variation and experience. Most of these variations have little effect. Some are harmful, a few are useful in a given context. Over time, the useful ones persist. This persistence is quiet. It does not announce itself. There is no moment when evolution declares success. Life simply continues, shaped by countless small outcomes that favored survival, often enough to matter. Even now, this process unfolds everywhere. In soil, microbes adapt to subtle chemical shifts. In forests, plants adjust flowering times. In oceans, animals respond to changing temperatures. Most of these changes are gradual, layered, and reversible. Nothing here requires attention to proceed. Evolution does not depend on being understood. It has been shaping life for billions of years without observation. The patterns remain whether they are studied closely or not considered at all. These ideas do not need to settle into clear conclusions. Like the process they describe, they can remain open, continuing quietly in the background. Life does not rush toward an end point. It persists, adjusting gently, one small change at a time. One of the most quietly remarkable features of evolution is how often similar solutions arise in completely separate places. When organisms face comparable challenges, they sometimes arrive at comparable forms, even when their histories are very different. This is known as convergent evolution, and it reveals how life responds to constraints rather than following a single, lineage-driven plan. Wings, for instance, did not appear only once. Insects developed wings long before vertebrates ever left the water. Birds inherited wings from reptilian ancestors, while bats shaped their wings from mammalian forelimbs. Each wing looks different when examined closely, built from distinct structures and materials. Yet all serve the same purpose, moving through air by interacting with it in similar ways. Evolution did not copy a design. It explored the same physical possibilities again and again. The same pattern appears in eyes. Complex eyes evolved independently in several lineages. The eyes of insects, mollusks, and vertebrates are constructed differently, yet they all detect light, contrast, and motion. The similarity lies not in shared ancestry, but in shared physics. Light behaves in certain ways. Tissues respond to it within certain limits. Over time, evolution finds these solutions wherever conditions make them useful. This tells us something important about how evolution works. It is not endlessly creative in the abstract. It is constrained by reality. Chemistry, physics, and geometry all shape what is possible. Life does not invent freely. It adapts within boundaries, revisiting solutions that work reliably under familiar conditions. At the same time, evolution is deeply conservative. Once a structure proves functional, it tends to be reused rather than replaced. New features often emerge by layering changes onto existing frameworks. This is why bones in the limbs of mammals follow similar patterns, whether in a whale's flipper, a horse's leg, or a human hand. The proportions differ, the uses differ, but the underlying structure remains recognizable. This reuse allows complexity to grow without starting from scratch. Evolution rarely discards a successful system entirely. Instead, it adjusts scale, orientation, and emphasis. A bone that once supported walking might later support swimming. A jawbone might become part of the inner ear. The past is not erased, it is folded into the present. Genetics reflects this continuity as well. Many genes involved in early development are shared across vast groups of organisms. Small changes in how these genes are regulated can lead to large differences in form. This means that evolution often works by adjusting when and where genes are active rather than changing the genes themselves. Because of this, dramatic changes can arise from surprisingly subtle shifts. A difference in timing can lengthen a limb. A change in duration can alter a face. These adjustments accumulate slowly, generation by generation, without any single moment marking the transition. This gradual accumulation explains why evolution can produce intricate results without foresight. Each step only needs to be viable in its own context. There is no requirement for the process to anticipate future outcomes. What matters is whether a change works well enough now. Over long spans of time, this leads to diversity not only in form but in behavior. Social structures, mating systems, and communication strategies all evolve through similar mechanisms. Behaviors that support survival and reproduction tend to persist. Others fade quietly when conditions change. Some species develop complex cooperation. Others remain solitary. Some rely on long-term memory. Others operate mostly on instinctive patterns. None of these strategies is universally better. Each reflects a history shaped by specific pressures and opportunities. Even intelligence, often treated as a pinnacle, is simply one of many possible outcomes. It arises where flexible behavior provides an advantage. In other environments, speed, camouflage, or chemical defense may matter more. Evolution does not rank its creations. It preserves what works. Extinction plays a role in this story as well, though it is often misunderstood. Extinction is not a failure of life as a whole. It is a regular part of its history. Most species that have ever existed are no longer alive. Their disappearance made room for others, altering ecosystems and opening new pathways for adaptation. These losses are rarely sudden on a global scale. Many occur gradually as conditions drift beyond what a species can tolerate. Others happen more abruptly due to environmental disruptions. In either case, extinction reshapes the landscape of possibilities rather than ending the process. After major extinctions, life does not restart, it reorganizes. Surviving lineages expand into newly available spaces, diversifying over time. The resulting ecosystems differ from what came before, but they are built from familiar components, adjusted to new circumstances. Throughout all of this, evolution remains indifferent to outcome. It does not aim to preserve particular forms or achieve complexity for its own sake. It responds to local conditions moment by moment, generation by generation. This indifference is not cold, it is simply non-judgmental. Life is allowed to try many paths. Some persist, others fade. The process continues without commentary. Seen this way, evolution is less a story of progress and more a story of persistence. What endures is not excellence, but adequacy. Traits that function well enough tend to remain. Those that do not are replaced or modified. This perspective removes the need for dramatic turning points. Most evolutionary change is quiet. It happens without spectacle. Populations shift slightly. Behaviors adjust subtly. Over time, the accumulation becomes visible, but at no point does it announce itself. Even now, this same pattern continues across the planet. Life responds to changing climates, landscapes, and interactions. Some changes are noticeable within a few generations. Others will only be recognized far in the future, if at all. Nothing about this requires urgency. Evolution does not rush to correct imbalances or achieve stability. It allows time to absorb variation, testing changes repeatedly before they become widespread. And so the living world remains in motion, not because it is striving towards something, but because it has always responded to what is present. Small differences continue to matter. Time continues to allow them space. Life continues, shaped gently by circumstances rather than direction. The continuity of evolution becomes especially clear when we look not at dramatic adaptations, but at what remains quietly unchanged. Many features persist not because they are optimal, but because they are sufficient. Once a trait works well enough, there is often little pressure to replace it. Evolution is economical in this way, preferring adjustment over reinvention. This is why many organisms carry features that seem unnecessary or incomplete when viewed in isolation. These are not mistakes. They are traces of earlier contexts, structures that once served a purpose and were never entirely removed. Evolution does not clean up after itself. It layers new solutions over old ones, leaving a record written into bodies and behaviors. In humans, this layered history appears everywhere. The structure of the spine reflects an ancestry adapted for horizontal movement, later repurposed for upright posture. The result works, but imperfectly. The lower back bears strain. Balance requires constant muscular adjustment. These are not flaws in the moral sense. They are compromises shaped by history. The same can be said of the human eye, where nerves run in front of light-sensitive cells, creating a blind spot. This arrangement makes sense only when traced back to earlier vertebrates. Evolution did not redesign the eye from scratch. It modified an existing layout, preserving its basic organization while improving function where possible. These examples highlight a central theme. Evolution does not pursue ideal forms. It works with what is already present. This reliance on existing structures gives rise to solutions that are functional but idiosyncratic, efficient but constrained. Over deep time, these constraints become invisible unless we know where to look. Living organisms appear coherent and purposeful because the layers have settled into stable arrangements. The history beneath them remains quiet but persistent. Genetic research has revealed just how deep this continuity runs. Many genes involved in basic cellular processes are shared across almost all life on Earth. The machinery that copies DNA, builds proteins, and manages energy emerged early and proved reliable. Evolution kept it. What changed over time was not the foundation, but the regulation. Genes were switched on or off in new patterns. Networks became more complex. Interactions multiplied. From this, diversity arose without abandoning the original framework. This reuse of genetic material explains why vastly different organisms can share surprising similarities at the molecular level. It also explains why small genetic changes can have large effects when they occur in regulatory regions. A slight shift in timing or intensity can alter development profoundly. Because of this, evolution is often subtle rather than dramatic. Many adaptations involve fine-tuning rather than wholesale change. A protein becomes slightly more efficient. A behavior becomes slightly better aligned with conditions. Over generations, these small shifts accumulate. From the inside, this process feels steady. From the outside, over long spans of time, it appears transformative. Another quiet aspect of evolution is its relationship with chance. Random variation plays a fundamental role. Mutations occur without regard for usefulness. Most have little effect. Some are harmful. A few, by chance, fit well with existing conditions. Natural selection does not create variation. It filters it. Which variations persist depends on the environment, the population, and timing. A trait that is advantageous in one context may be neutral or harmful in another. There is no permanent ranking. This dependence on context means that evolution has no fixed direction. Lineages do not move inevitably toward complexity, intelligence, or size. Some become simpler. Others specialize narrowly. Many remain relatively unchanged for long periods because their environment remains stable. Stasis is not stagnation, it is balance. When conditions remain consistent, there is little reason for dramatic change. Evolution continues at the genetic level, but its effects are subtle, often invisible, without close examination. The fossil record often reflects this pattern. Many species appear suddenly, persist with little visible change, and then disappear. This does not imply sudden creation or abrupt failure. It reflects the uneven pace at which change becomes visible and the incompleteness of the record. In some cases, change accelerates when environments shift rapidly. Climate changes, geological events, or new interactions can alter selective pressures. Populations respond sometimes quickly, sometimes too slowly to persist. Yet even in these moments, evolution does not become intentional. There is no adaptation because it is needed, only because certain variations already exist that happen to cope better under new conditions. This distinction matters. Evolution is not a response to future problems, it is a filtering of present variation. Survival depends on what is already available, not on what would be ideal. Because of this, evolution often produces unexpected outcomes. Traits evolve for one reason and later serve another. Feathers initially provided insulation and display before becoming essential for flight. Structures shift roles as contexts change. This repurposing, known as exaptation, is common. It allows evolution to build complexity without foresight. New uses emerge from existing features simply by being available when conditions shift. In this way, evolution resembles a long conversation between organisms and their environments. Each generation inherits a set of possibilities. The environment responds by favoring some over others. The next generation begins again, slightly altered. There is no pause in this exchange. It continues across continents, climates, and eras, shaping life quietly and persistently. Importantly, this process does not require awareness. Organisms do not need to know what they are adapting to. They do not need to understand their own traits. The filtering happens regardless of perception. Even behavior, which can feel deliberate, is shaped in this way. Instincts, preferences, and tendencies evolve because they influence survival and reproduction, not because they are chosen consciously. Over time, these tendencies can become remarkably intricate. Migration routes, social signals, and mating displays evolve through small adjustments repeated across generations. What appears complex is often the result of accumulated simplicity. This accumulation gives rise to resilience. Life persists not because it avoids change, but because it absorbs it. Variation ensures that some individuals cope better with new conditions. Diversity provides options. From this perspective, the living world is not fragile in the way it sometimes appears. Individual species may be vulnerable, but life as a whole is durable. It has weathered extreme conditions repeatedly, adapting to environments far harsher than those familiar today. This durability does not come from strength or foresight, but from flexibility and time. Evolution does not solve problems quickly. It allows time to test countless possibilities. And so the story continues, not as a sequence of breakthroughs, but as a steady unfolding. Traits persist, shift, fade, and reappear in new forms. The past remains present, woven into every living system. Nothing here requires completion. Evolution has no endpoint. It does not move toward resolution. It continues as long as life continues, shaped by circumstance, chance, and patience. In this long view, there is no pressure to arrive anywhere. The process itself is sufficient, unfolding quietly across generations, maintaining continuity without needing direction or conclusion. Evolution also becomes visible when we look at how life interacts, not just how individual organisms change. No species evolves in isolation. Every plant, animal, fungus, and microbe exists within a network of relationships that subtly shape its future. Predators influence prey. Prey influence predators. Competitors, partners, parasites, and symbionts all apply gentle pressures that guide which traits persist. This web of interaction means that evolution is often reciprocal. When one species changes, it can alter the conditions for others. A plant that develops a new chemical defense may favor insects capable of tolerating it. Those insects, in turn, may influence which plants reproduce more successfully. Over time, both lineages shift, not because they intend to, but because each becomes part of the other's environment. These slow exchanges can continue for millions of years, producing intricate balances. Pollinators and flowers often evolve together, their shapes, colors, and behaviors becoming finely matched. Neither planned the arrangement. It emerged through repeated encounters, each one nudging the system slightly. Sometimes these relationships become so close that separation is no longer possible. Many organisms depend on internal partners to survive. The cells of plants and animals contain mitochondria, tiny structures responsible for energy production. These mitochondria descended from free-living bacteria that became permanent partners inside ancestral cells. Rather than being digested, they remained, forming a lasting partnership. This event did not happen because it was optimal in advance. It persisted because it worked. Cells with internal energy producers gained an advantage. Over time, the partnership became permanent. Today, the boundary between host and guest is nearly invisible, yet the history remains embedded in cellular structure and DNA. Similar partnerships exist everywhere. Gut bacteria help animals digest food, synthesize vitamins, and regulate immune responses. In return, they receive a stable environment and nutrients. Coral reefs depend on symbiotic algae that live inside coral tissues, providing energy through photosynthesis. Without these algae, reefs cannot survive. These examples show that evolution is not only competitive, cooperation plays an equally important role. Traits that enable collaboration can be as influential as those that improve defense or speed. Survival often depends on integration rather than isolation. Even conflict itself can lead to stability. Arms races between predators and prey drive refinement on both sides. Faster predators select for faster prey. Better camouflage selects for sharper perception. Over time, these pressures can reach an equilibrium where neither side gains a decisive advantage. This balance does not end competition, it tempers it. The system becomes dynamic but stable, with fluctuations rather than collapse. Many ecosystems function this way, maintaining overall structure while allowing constant local change. Evolution also leaves traces in behavior that extend beyond physical form. Social structures, communication signals, and learning strategies all evolve through selection. Behaviors that improve survival or reproduction tend to persist, even if they require energy or coordination. In some species, social behavior becomes highly complex. Ant colonies function as coordinated systems, with individuals performing specialized roles. No single ant understands the whole colony. Order arises from simple rules followed collectively. This kind of organization does not require intelligence in the human sense. It emerges from repetition and feedback. Behaviors that fit the system persist. Those that disrupt it tend to disappear. Among vertebrates, social evolution can lead to long-lasting bonds, hierarchies, and communication systems. Birds learn songs, primates develop grooming rituals. These behaviors are shaped by both genetic tendencies and learning, interacting across generations. Learning itself can influence evolution. When behaviors are passed culturally rather than genetically, they can change more quickly than physical traits. Over time, this can alter selective pressures, feeding back into genetic evolution. Humans represent an extreme case of this interaction. Cultural practices have reshaped environments, diets, and social structures, creating new evolutionary contexts. The ability to digest milk in adulthood, for example, spread in populations that practiced dairy farming. The cultural habit came first. Genetic change followed. This illustrates an important point. Evolution does not occur only in response to natural landscapes. It responds to any consistent environment, including those shaped by other organisms. In this sense, life becomes part of its own context. Despite this complexity, the underlying process remains simple. Variation arises, conditions filter it, time allows the effects to accumulate, no foresight is required. When viewed over deep time, this simplicity produces an astonishing range of outcomes. From bacteria to whales, from moss to forests, all emerge from the same basic principles applied repeatedly under different circumstances. Importantly, extinction is part of this process. Most species that have ever lived no longer exist. This is not a sign of failure, it reflects change. Environments shift, relationships dissolve. Some lineages persist, others end. Extinction clears space, it alters ecosystems, it creates new opportunities for remaining organisms to diversify. After mass extinctions, life often rebounds with bursts of innovation, filling newly available niches. These rebounds are not planned recoveries, they are explorations. Variation spreads into open roles, selection shapes what remains. Over time, ecosystems stabilize again, different from before, but equally functional. The fossil record captures this rhythm. Long periods of relative stability are punctuated by disruptions and renewal. Life adapts not by resisting change, but by continuing through it. Even at the molecular level, this persistence is evident. DNA is constantly being copied, repaired, and sometimes altered. Errors occur, most are corrected, some remain. A few become part of the lineage. The majority of mutations have little noticeable effect. They accumulate quietly, contributing to genetic diversity without altering form or behavior. This hidden variation provides a reservoir that can become important if conditions change. Because of this, evolution is often invisible in the short term. Generations pass with little apparent difference. Change becomes clear only when viewed across long spans of time. This slow pace is part of what makes evolution compatible with stability. Systems do not need to be rebuilt constantly. They adjust gradually, preserving continuity while remaining flexible. From this perspective, life is not fragile in the sense of being easily erased by small disturbances. It is fragile in specific forms, but robust as a process. The same mechanisms that allow adaptation also allow recovery. Evolution does not promise permanence, it allows persistence. It does not protect individual species indefinitely. It maintains the broader flow of life through variation and selection. This flow has no preferred destination. It does not aim toward complexity, simplicity, intelligence, or any particular outcome. It explores possibilities within constraints, guided by immediate conditions rather than long-term goals. As environments change, so do the paths available. Ice ages advance and retreat, continents drift, oceans open and close. Each shift reshapes the landscape of selection. Life responds not by anticipating these changes, but by continuing. Those lineages that happen to cope persist. Others do not. Over time, this filtering shapes the living world. Seen from far enough away, evolution resembles a steady current rather than a sequence of events. Individual changes blur together. What remains is continuity, and within that continuity, nothing is required to conclude. The process does not build toward an ending. It remains open, ongoing, shaped by conditions as they arise, extending quietly into the future without needing resolution. Evolution also unfolds at scales that are easy to overlook, where changes are not dramatic enough to register as novelty, yet significant enough to shape entire lineages over time. Many adaptations arise not from bold transformations, but from small adjustments in timing, proportion, or regulation. A gene that activates slightly earlier, a hormone released in a different pattern, a growth phase extended or shortened just enough to alter the final form. These subtle shifts can have lasting effects. A longer developmental window might allow a brain to grow larger. A delayed transition between life stages might favor survival in a particular environment. Often, the same physical structures remain in place, but their use changes. Evolution tends to revise rather than replace. This is why so many organisms carry traces of earlier forms, not as mistakes, but as evidence of continuity. Bones that once supported different movements, muscles that once served another function, genetic sequences that remain present even when no longer active. The past is rarely erased, it is layered. Even traits that seem inefficient can persist if they do not interfere with survival. Evolution does not refine endlessly, it settles for what works well enough. Perfection is not required, sufficiency is. This tolerance allows for diversity. Different solutions can coexist. Multiple strategies can lead to survival within the same environment. Some species rely on speed, others on camouflage, some on strength, others on cooperation. The environment does not demand a single answer. As a result, ecosystems often contain overlapping roles. Several species may feed on similar resources, each in a slightly different way. This redundancy adds resilience. If one species declines, others can partially fill its role, allowing the system to continue. Resilience in this sense is not rigidity, it is flexibility distributed across many forms. Evolution favors systems that can absorb change without collapsing entirely. This principle applies not only to ecosystems, but to life as a whole. Over billions of years, Earth has experienced dramatic shifts. Atmospheres changed composition. Temperatures fluctuated, oceans rose and fell. Through all of this, life persisted, adapting again and again to new conditions. One of the most profound transitions occurred when photosynthetic organisms began releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. At the time, oxygen was toxic to many existing forms of life. Its accumulation led to widespread extinction, yet it also created new possibilities. Organisms evolved ways to use oxygen efficiently, unlocking far greater energy yields. This shift reshaped evolution permanently. Complex multicellular life became possible. New metabolisms emerged. The composition of the planet changed, not through intention, but through cumulative biological activity. Life did not simply adapt to Earth, it transformed it. This transformation was not coordinated. Individual organisms acted locally, responding to immediate conditions. The global effects emerged slowly over immense spans of time. The planet became part of the evolutionary process. Even today, life continues to influence Earth's systems. Forests affect climate, oceans regulate carbon, microbes cycle nutrients. These interactions are not directed. They arise from countless small processes operating simultaneously. In this way, evolution extends beyond organisms into systems. It shapes not only bodies, but relationships between life and environment. Importantly, this shaping does not require awareness. Bacteria do not know they are altering the atmosphere. Plants do not intend to stabilize soils. The effects emerge regardless. Evolution operates comfortably without foresight. At the same time, evolution does not act alone. Physical laws set boundaries. Chemistry determines what molecules can form. Physics governs energy flow. Life explores possibilities within these constraints. This interplay gives evolution its character. It is open-ended but not unlimited. Certain solutions recur because they work well within physical realities. Eyes evolve repeatedly because light is useful, and detection mechanisms are achievable. Wings evolve because air can support lift. Similar challenges invite similar responses, yet even repeated solutions are never identical. Each lineage adapts using what it already has. Structures are modified differently. Genetic pathways diverge. Convergence produces resemblance, not sameness. This balance between constraint and creativity gives evolution its quiet richness. The process does not seek novelty, yet novelty appears. It does not aim for complexity, yet complexity arises where it is supported. From this perspective, humans are neither the goal nor an anomaly. We are one outcome among many, shaped by particular conditions and histories. Our traits reflect trade-offs, compromises, and inherited structures, just like every other organism. Our capacity for language, abstraction, and technology emerged gradually. It rests on earlier adaptations for social living, communication, and learning. Each layer built upon what was already present. Even now, these traits continue to shift. Human populations vary, genetic diversity persists, selection continues, often subtly, shaped by environments that include culture, technology, and medicine. Evolution has not stopped, it has changed context. At the same time, much of human biology remains deeply ancient. Cellular processes operate much as they did billions of years ago. Metabolic pathways are conserved, fundamental structures persist. This coexistence of old and new is a hallmark of evolution. Innovation is additive. Rarely does it erase the foundations beneath it. Because of this, the living world carries a sense of continuity that extends far beyond individual lifespans. Every organism is part of a lineage that stretches backward through time, connected by unbroken chains of reproduction. These chains do not require remembrance. They persist through replication and variation. Each generation passes forward not a plan, but a set of possibilities shaped by prior filtering. Looking forward, evolution offers no predictions. It does not promise progress or decline, it responds. Future environments will differ from present ones. Some lineages will adapt, others will not. New forms will arise, others will disappear. the process will continue regardless. What remains consistent is pace. Evolution works slowly, especially when measured against human timescales. Changes that matter most often require many generations. This slowness allows stability alongside change. Because change is distributed over time, it rarely feels abrupt from within. Organisms experience continuity even as evolution unfolds around them. This perspective softens the idea of transformation. Evolution is not a series of disruptions, it is a background process, always present, quietly shaping outcomes without drawing attention to itself. And within that background, life continues to diversify, interact, and persist, not driven by urgency, but carried forward by the steady accumulation of small differences over long spans of time. There is no final form waiting to be reached, no optimal arrangement toward which everything moves. The process remains open, responsive, and ongoing. In this openness, there is room for variation, for resilience, and for quiet continuation. Evolution does not conclude, it remains, extending into whatever conditions come next, shaped moment by the same gentle principles that have always applied. As evolution continues, one of its most consistent qualities is how little it demands from any single moment. No generation carries the weight of the entire process. Each simply lives within the conditions it encounters, shaped by what came before, and contributing in small ways to what follows. Change accumulates quietly through presence rather than effort. This helps explain why evolution can feel both immense and calm at the same time. Its effects are everywhere, yet rarely urgent. A population adjusts slowly to temperature. A species shifts its range over many generations. A behavior becomes more common without announcement. The process does not declare itself as change, it feels like continuity. Over long stretches of time, this continuity gives rise to patterns that become visible only in hindsight. Lineages branch, traits spread or fade, structures are refined, repurposed, or left largely unchanged. These outcomes may appear purposeful when viewed from the end, but they emerged without direction, shaped only by persistence and filtering. Even complexity itself arises this way. Multicellular life did not appear because complexity was favored in the abstract, but because cooperation between cells offered stability in certain contexts. Once established, that cooperation allowed further layers to develop: tissues, organs, nervous systems, each resting on simpler foundations rather than replacing them, and simplicity never disappeared. Single-celled life remains abundant and essential, thriving in environments as different as deep oceans, frozen ice, fertile soil, and living bodies. Evolution does not discard earlier solutions when new ones appear. It allows many strategies to exist side by side. Time in this process is not a force pushing life forward. It is the space in which change becomes possible. Given enough time, even the smallest differences can shape entire worlds. Without time, variation would remain insignificant. With time, it becomes meaningful. Because of this, evolution is deeply tied to patience. It does not reward speed on its own. It rewards fit within context. Sometimes that favors rapid reproduction, sometimes longevity, sometimes flexibility, sometimes endurance. No single trait guarantees success across all conditions. Seen this way, extinction and emergence are not opposites, but parts of the same flow. As some forms disappear, others find room to expand. As environments shift, possibilities rearrange. Life continues not as a fixed cast of characters, but as an ongoing exploration of what can persist. For humans, recognizing this continuity can gently shift perspective. We are not observers standing outside evolution, we are participants within it. Our bodies, behaviors, and societies reflect both ancient inheritance and ongoing change. Awareness may influence environments, but evolution itself does not bend to intention. It continues at its own pace, on its own scale. And perhaps this is what gives evolution its steady presence. It does not rush, It does not aim toward completion. It remains open, adaptive, and quietly persistent. Life, shaped by evolution, is not a finished story. It is a process that carries forward generation by generation, responding to what exists and, in doing so, creating what comes next. Across deep time, this has been enough. Even now, the same principles apply. Variation still appears, conditions still shift, and life continues to respond in the only way it ever has, by adjusting, persisting, and exploring what remains possible. There is no final form waiting ahead. Nothing here needs to resolve. The living world carries itself forward gently, shaped by forces that do not hurry, extending into the future with the same quiet reliability that has always sustained it. Good night.